request Sri Samir Desai from Reliance to please come on the dais. Request Sri Harin Mehta, our Joint Secretary, to please come on the dais. Friends, before we begin the event, as a token of appreciation from the BSE Brokers Forum, we would request Mr. Harin Mehta to kindly give a memento to Sri Samir Desai. Thank you, Harin sir. Taking the seminar forward, now I would request Sri Samir Desai to give his presentation. And friends, after the presentation, we will have a Q&A round. So whatever difficulty, doubts or any questions you have regarding the product or the operational part, please raise your hand and we will have a proper Q&A session.
Good evening, friends. First of all, let me thank BSE Brokers Forum for inviting me to speak this evening, I think on a very exciting subject, exchange-traded funds. As you may be aware, exchange-traded funds have invoked a lot of interest and curiosity in recent times. And ETFs are gaining a lot of momentum and popularity in India amongst investors. Before I go to the presentation, I'd briefly like to speak on the evolution of ETFs in India. About 4 years back, the government of India decided to disinvest via the ETF route. So they selected a few public sector Navratna and Maharatna companies, made an index out of it and decided to disinvest via this route. Since that decision was taken in 2013, there have been 3 offerings from the government of India which have been extremely well received by the investors. So investors have made very good returns in what is known as the CPSE ETF, the Central Public Sector Enterprises ETF, and the government of India will disinvest more via this route in the future. Additionally, what the government of India also did was they allowed provident funds, retirement funds for the first time to invest in equities. So this decision was taken by the Ministry of Finance in 2015. And as a consequence of that, retirement funds started participating in equities via the ETF route. So that is the route the retirement funds adopted to take exposure to equities as an asset class. So, as you can see, the institutional participation in exchange-traded funds in India has become quite a bit has been gaining traction in recent times. And ETFs have also been gaining popularity with the retail investors. In fact, some of the largest funds worldwide today are exchange-traded funds. Some of the exchange-traded funds abroad in the US are a single scheme is larger than the size of our entire mutual fund industry. So that is how popular ETFs have become worldwide. Now, before we understand the advantages of ETFs, let me speak a little bit about the shortcomings in the traditional methods of investing. So once we understand these shortcomings, appreciating ETFs, you'll be able to appreciate ETFs even more. You'll be able to understand the advantages of ETFs even more. So what is the traditional method of participating in the market? The traditional method of participating in equities is trying to select good companies to invest. Okay, that is what we do. when we say that I want to participate in equities, what do? You do research and try and select future blue chips, correct? That is what you do. So that is the traditional method of investing. If you can't do it yourself, you give your money to professionals, managers, portfolio managers, who you assume will select good companies on your behalf and eventually give you good returns. So this is how the traditional method of investing works. Now, when you pick stocks, there are a couple of risks involved. What are the risks when you do stock picking? So one of the risks is you have to predict in advance which companies will do well in the future, right? And you also have to predict in advance that which companies will go bad in the future. So these predictions you have to consistently make if you have to improve your experience about stock market or capital market investing. Is that right? Let me take just one or two examples about how difficult it is, even for experts, to consistently pick stocks. So the first example that I will take is of Sir Isaac Newton. Everybody has heard of Newton, the famous scientist. So Newton picked a company 300 years back on the London Stock Exchange, and after he bought that stock, the prices rose and he made a profit of 20,000 pounds. So that was a handsome amount in those days. So Newton was very happy. As the prices moved up, he books profits. What happens afterwards? The prices of that stock move even higher. Okay, so Newton has booked profit, but the prices move even higher on the stock market. So Newton is unhappy and he thinks that he has made a mistake. So what he does is he buys that stock back at the peak. So he puts all the profit that he made plus all his savings into that company and buys the shares back at the peak. After that, the price plummets. So Newton loses everything. What does Newton write? Newton laments that with physics I can predict the motions of planets, but not the madness of minds. So what he's trying to say is that I can predict through research where the planets will be on a particular day in the heavens, but I cannot predict the direction of the market. This is what Newton is trying to say. Okay, let me give you just one more example. So I was reading an article a couple of years back. So there was Wall Street Journal did a study. It invited experts. This was sometime in 2005. So they do these studies every year, So they invited some experts and told them that make two lists from the S&P 500. So make one list of 10 best companies and make another list of 10 worst companies. So all the expert stock pickers were invited to do this exercise. List of 10 best companies and list of 10 worst companies for the year 2005. So the experts make this list. What happens? In 2005, the stock market as measured by the S&P 500 index gives a return of about 9%. The list of 10 best stocks as made by experts gives a return of approximately 13%. So the experts have done well. But the list of 10 worst stocks made by experts gives a return of 19%. And one company, an oil company in that list of 10 worst stocks gives the highest return in the S&P 500, almost 150%. So what these examples tell you is that it is very difficult to consistently identify which companies will do well in the future. And it is difficult even for experts. So there is a risk of prediction when you buy stocks. Additionally, what happens is one does stock picking with the purpose of beating the market index. So I want to earn a return higher than the market index. But there is a basic law which governs the market which is the zero-sum equation. What does this mean? That if somebody generates a higher return than the index or beats the market, somebody has to, as a consequence, earn a lower return. Everybody cannot generate an excess return higher than the index, because otherwise who would lose money? So in the zero-sum game of the market, if you are generating a return in excess of the market, somebody as a consequence has to get a lower return. So in short, if somebody outperforms, somebody has to underperform. And in a market which is very competitive, where a lot of people are doing research, the outperformers and the underperformers will keep changing all the time. So now if I want to bring down these risks, if I want to bring down the risk of prediction, if I want to bring down the risk of the zero-sum equation and simply earn the market rate of return, which is also good enough to create wealth, what do? I have to have an instrument through which I can buy or take exposure to the index in the stock market. So supposing I have an instrument through which I can buy the Sensex or the Nifty index, let's say, then I would earn the return which the index is giving me. How do I do that? I can do that through an exchange traded fund. So when you buy, let's say, a Sensex ETF from the stock market, and I'll come to that, what happens is you buy, first of all, a diversified portfolio, just like you're buying a share. So you bring down the risks associated with stock picking. You don't have to now predict which stocks will do well or which companies will not do well. You are simply buying the index instead of buying a single share. So you are diversifying your risk into 30 Sensex companies or 50 Nifty companies, and you keep earning the return which the index generates, which also is good enough to beat inflation, which is the primary purpose of buying equities. So you bring down the risk of prediction. Secondly, you are not afflicted by the zero-sum equation, because now you are not trying to beat the index. You are staying put with the index return. So the outperformance and the underperformance, that randomness goes away, and you start getting the index rate of return. So the index is a portfolio so designed that it captures the characteristics or properties of a market. So for example, Sensex is so designed that it captures the behavior, the characteristics of the large cap segment of the market. Similarly, you have other indexes like a mid cap index or a sector index, which helps you capture the properties of that segment of the market. So for example, if you buy, let's say, a bank ETF, exchange traded fund, where the underlying portfolio is the bank index, then you are capturing the return of the banking sector, and you are doing away with the guesswork of which bank stocks to buy or not to buy. So this is what happens when you buy an index. So think of the index as a cricket team, as a national cricket team. See, what happens is we fall in love with individual cricketers, which are stocks. So today's blue chip cricketer may go out of the team tomorrow. He may not do well. Okay, just like stocks. So today's blue chip stock may become a bad company tomorrow. But if you like cricket, buy the national team as a whole, which is the index. So this is exactly what happens when you buy an equity exchange traded fund. You are at any given point in time, you are with the market rate of return, which, as I said earlier, and I'll repeat, is good enough to beat inflation and to meet your financial objectives. So with this brief introduction, so what I just said was that I have to bring down the risks associated with stock picking, which is predicting all the time which companies to buy, which companies to remove, trying to see the future. See, future events are going to drive prices, and it is very difficult to do that in the present. And a lot of research has been done in what we call the field of financial economics over the last 100 years. which tells us that it is almost impossible to keep seeing those future events which will drive future stock prices. So I am bringing down these risks when I buy the index via an ETF share. So if I go to the first slide, as I said, an ETF combines two advantages. First of all, it trades like a share. So exactly like you would buy a company ABC or XYZ on the stock exchange, in a similar fashion, through your broking account, you will buy an ETF share. The difference is, the major difference is that instead of taking exposure or taking a concentrated risk in an individual company, you are buying a diversified index portfolio. That is what you are doing when you buy an ETF share. So if you buy a Nifty ETF share or a Sensex ETF share, you are buying a diversified basket exactly like you would buy a share real time on the stock exchange through a broking account, and the delivery of these shares exactly like shares would come in the Demat account on T+2. So operationally, ETFs are identical to buying shares. Okay, everything is the same. The major difference, diversification instead of buying an individual stock. So you are bringing down the risks associated with individual companies. So it has the properties of a stock and a mutual fund scheme, which is diversification. So two advantages combined in one instrument is what an ETF is all about. So they are simple to understand and transparent to track. Why simple to understand? Because when I buy a Sensex ETF, it is very simple. I am taking exposure to the Sensex. And it is transparent. Why? Because I know the Sensex portfolio. I know what is the Sensex portfolio at any given point in time. So there is no complexity involved. Second point, it can be bought and sold on the stock exchange exactly you would be like you would be buying any other share through your stock broker or through your online broking account. It is less expensive than investing in multiple individual securities. So imagine, supposing you had to buy just one share of each of the Sensex companies or one share of each of the Nifty companies. Imagine how much that investment would be. When you buy a Sensex ETF or a Nifty ETF, at a very small price, you get exposure to the entire basket. And I'll tell you, when I come to that slide, I'll tell you how ETFs are priced. You will exactly understand how with a very small amount, you can take exposure to the entire basket in the cash market. Remember, ETFs are cash market products. Okay, they are not in the futures segment of the capital markets. So they are in the cash market. So they are less expensive and they can be bought and sold throughout the market trading hours at real-time prices. So asset allocation becomes very easy. What is asset allocation? Asset allocation is distributing your money or diversifying across various asset classes. You cannot do that when you buy individual stocks. Supposing you buy a stock ABC, it does not represent an asset class. But when you buy, let's say, a Nifty ETF or a Sensex ETF, it is representing the large cap segment of the market. So you are taking exposure to an asset class, which is the large cap companies of the market, which cannot happen when you buy individual stocks. So when I buy, let's say I have 100 rupees and I want to spread them amongst various asset classes. This is very easily done through ETFs because I can put some money in a large cap ETF, I can allot some money to a mid cap ETF. If I am bullish on, say, another asset class like gold, I can buy a gold ETF. If I am bullish on a particular sector, let's say the banking sector, I can buy a banking ETF. So asset allocation, which is what decides most of your portfolio returns, becomes very easy when you buy ETFs. It is not possible to do this with individual securities because they don't represent the market. This diagram tells us how ETFs are bought and sold on the stock exchange. So the right hand side of the diagram tells you that when you buy or sell ETFs, there is an exchange on the terminal which happens between buyers and sellers. So let's say if you buy 100 shares of Sensex ETF on the secondary market, on the BSE, it is an exchange between buyers and sellers. What is the left-hand side of the diagram telling us? Now supposing, let's assume that there is a large insurance company wanting to buy a big quantity of Sensex ETFs, ETF shares or Nifty ETF shares. Then the authorized participant appointed by the asset management company which is offering ETFs, he creates the liquidity. He is the market maker. So the asset management company, let's say like Reliance, which is offering ETFs, appoints an authorized participant who is nothing but a stockbroker. He creates liquidity for this large buying order. So what does he do? Supposing there's a large buying order, what will the authorized participant do? He will go and buy the underlying Sensex basket and supply the ETF shares on the counter. If there is a sell order, exactly the reverse will happen. So liquidity is not an issue with ETFs at all. So I'll just take one or two actual examples here. Recently, when the Central Public Sector Enterprises ETFs was listed, when the government did its disinvestment program in January 2017, on certain days after the listing, the volumes were as high as 800 to 1,000 crores. So ETFs saw those kind of volumes on a couple of days. So liquidity is not an issue in ETFs because the underlying portfolio is an index. One of the criteria for a stock to come in the index is liquidity. See, there are certain parameters how a stock comes into the index, and one of the parameters that the index committee considers is liquidity. So this tells us that ETF buying and selling is a very easy process and liquidity is not an issue. So this is the global scenario. So the first ETF share was listed on the New York Stock Exchange in 1993. Which was that ETF share? The S&P 500 ETF share. So when an American investor bought that S&P 500 ETF share, he got exposure to the entire S&P 500 index in the cash market. So there was an advantage because he did not have to guess which stocks to buy. He bought a diversified basket and life was very easy. Now, ever since that initial launch, over the last 2 decades, no other product has grown this fast in financial services history as have ETFs. So today, globally, ETFs have over $3 trillion of assets. And today, there are many different kinds of ETF schemes that you can buy on the stock exchange. In fact, a couple of months back, I was, sometime I think in end of December, I was looking at the volumes of individual securities on NYSE. Now, one would assume that the volumes of famous companies like Apple, Facebook, Google would be very high, the trading volume. Of course, they have high volumes. So, for example, from memory, the day, when I was looking at the volume, I think Apple had a trading volume of about something like 20 or 25,000 crore rupees, okay, for that particular day. On that very same day, and Apple had the highest volume amongst individual securities. Now, on that very same day, the S&P 500 ETF share on NYSE had a volume of approximately 1,40,000 crores. So famous companies, the volume of famous companies is nowhere near the volume that ETFs enjoy. What it tells us is that investors in the West are no longer looking for individual securities. Okay, they are not doing that guesswork. Instead of doing that, they are buying the entire market or segments of the market via the index. In fact, the famous CEO of one of the largest asset management companies in the world once said, Vanguard, the CEO of Vanguard, which is one of the largest AMCs today, he once said that picking stocks is like looking for needles in a haystack. don't hunt for needles. Instead of that, buy the entire haystack, which is the index. Okay, this is what John Bogle, the former founder CEO of Vanguard, once said. So he is a strong proponent of investing through index funds or ETFs. So instead of, as Google says, instead of hunting for needles, simply buy the market via index funds or ETFs. This is the Indian scenario. So the very first ETF share in India was launched in the year 2001, which was the Nifty ETF. So that was listed on the NSE and the BSE in 2001. And ever since that initial launch, if you see, in fact, the last 3 years, 2015, 16 and 17, ETF growth in India has really galloped because of the government disinvestment, the participation of retirement funds, participation of insurance companies, and increased participation also from the retail investors. So today, as you can see, March 2017, there are almost more than 55 ETF schemes or shares, different types of ETF shares listed on the BSE and NSE. So today, Indian investors can construct portfolios very easily by buying asset classes or indexes and even gold ETF as well as money market ETFs through various ETF schemes listed on the stock exchange. So no longer you have to go and think which companies should I buy. No longer you have to ask your neighbor which stocks to buy. You can simply buy the market or various asset classes and construct portfolios very easily, rebalance portfolios very easily through ETFs. So Reliance, let me talk a little bit about the Reliance AMC. So last year, Reliance acquired the Goldman Sachs ETF business in India, and with that acquisition today, Reliance has the largest bouquet of ETF schemes in India. Okay. And it has so that is one of the largest bouquets, and Reliance ETFs see the highest liquidity. And it was also the innovator of the gold ETF and one of the first AMCs to launch the gold ETF in India. And it was the first AMC, or it is the first AMC, which the government of India chose to disinvest PSU companies through the ETF route. So this is the product basket of bouquet of Reliance ETF shares. As you can see, we have 13 equity ETFs. So you have the Nifty ETF, the Sensex ETF, which are the broad market ETFs. Then we have the NV20, which is a smart beta ETF. We have the Junior Bs, which is the Nifty Next 50 index. So the next 50 companies after the Nifty comprise this index. Then we have the Nifty 100. We have the bank ETF, which is the bank index, the PSU bank index, the CPSE, which is the Central Public Sector and Enterprises ETFs. And this was the ETF which participated in the Government of India disinvestment program. So this is a bouquet large enough to construct portfolios. We also have 2 debt ETFs or fixed income ETFs, the liquid ETF and the gilt ETF, and we have 1 commodity ETF, which is the gold ETF. So you have different sectors, you have the broad market, you have different asset classes like gold and fixed income schemes. So portfolio construction becomes very easy through asset allocation. Now let me talk about particularly about 2 ETF schemes that we have. So I'll talk about the Nifty Junior. Bees is the brand of the Reliance ETFs. So when you see Nifty Bees, Gold Bees, Liquid Bees, Infrastructure Bees, Bank Bees, these are all schemes offered by Reliance AMC. Now the Junior Bees have the underlying portfolio here is the Nifty Next 50 index. So when you buy 1 share of Junior Bees, you are getting exposure to the entire Nifty Next 50 index. Okay, so these are the next 50 large cap companies. The top 100 companies are the large companies. So Nifty has the large companies, and the Nifty Next 50 index also has large companies. So how is this ETF priced? So let's talk about that. This one share is priced at 1/10 of the index value. So currently, the index value is about, let's say, 26,700 or something. So one share is priced at 267 rupees. So when you go and buy it on the stock exchange, you can get exposure to the entire index for 267 rupees. Instead of that, if you had to buy one share each from this index, you would end up paying a lot more, or you would require a much larger amount of money. So this is how you can, with very less amounts, invest in ETF shares. Now this index is diversified into very many industries, as you can see on the right hand side. Finance companies, you have banks, you have NBFCs, you have pharma companies. So it's a very well diversified company. The left hand side table shows the top 10 companies in the index currently. The weightages of the top 10 companies currently. Now what we did was, we compared this scheme with 115 large cap funds managed by managers. Okay, so you have the index ETF where you are simply buying the market at a low cost, and we compare it with schemes where managers are picking stocks and trying to beat the index. So let's see how the comparison looks. So these are rolling returns, 1 year, 3 years and 5 years. So if I go to the first graph, this is a 1 year rolling return graph. Now the blue line is the return given by the 115 large cap funds in the aggregate. So what this graph shows is the outperformance and underperformance of that category of large cap funds over the index, over the junior index or the junior ETF, the actual product. So if I look at this point, for example, November 2012, what it tells me is that the entire category of 115 large cap funds has underperformed or given a negative return as compared to the junior ETF by 20% CAGR. The entire category. Now this is the average return of the category. That means some funds in this category would be even worse. The return would be even more pathetic than 20%. 20% is the average return. If I go to the 5-year rolling graph, what does it tell me? In March 15, the entire category is close to the junior B's performance. But as markets are becoming more competitive or more efficient, it is becoming more and more difficult for managers to beat the index. So here now when you see the entire category, or almost throughout this time period, the entire category of 115 large cap funds has underperformed the index or the junior ETF. So what this tells me is that when I buy the junior ETF, I am taking exposure to the index, which is giving me a decent return, and people who are trying to beat the index are unable to do so. This does not mean nobody beats the index. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that when a lot of people or when a lot of experts are trying to pick stocks, the consistency of individual experts goes down. So in absolute terms, I may have a lot of expertise at stock picking, but when I'm competing with a lot of peers who have similar expertise, my consistency of finding the best companies or generating alpha falls. This is what this graph is telling us. So let me just cover one or two more slides. This is the percentile return. What this tells me? It's very simple. So if I take March 2011, this point, junior ETF is in the 25th percentile. What it means is that 75% of the large cap funds were better than junior Bs. Okay, they did better. the managers did better. But here, at this point, September 2012, junior Bs is in the 100th percentile. That means it was better than all the 115 large cap funds. That means the managers, the experts, have not been able to beat the market or the junior index. What it is telling me is simply that. So all these studies tell us, as the markets are getting more and more competitive, the consistency of individual experts is going down at stock picking. This is what these graphs are telling us. So if let's say the 5-year percentile analysis or the 5-year rolling analysis in percentile, what it means is, if you look at this number, 82%. For 82% of the time, or the observations in this time period of 5 years, junior was greater than at least 50% of the funds. That means its consistency was very high. It was greater than 50th percentile. Very few managed funds managed to better that record of the index. So index investing has paid off. It is in fact more consistent in giving returns. And these are the SIP returns. Everybody has heard of SIPs, systematic investment plans. So today, many stockbrokers offer you what is known as the stock SIP facility. So you can choose your favorite stock or ETF and start an SIP, secondary market SIP, into ETFs. So supposing instead of choosing individual stocks, one signed up for a junior B's SIP, stock SIP. Then as you can see, so there are a couple of things, interesting things happening here. As you see, over a longer time holding period, so if you held junior ETF for long periods of time, let's say for 7 years, in this study, it tells us that the chances of making a loss were nil. These are the characteristics of equities. The longer you hold, the chances of making a loss goes down, provided you're buying an index. I'm not talking about individual stocks, because individual stocks can become dabba. Okay, so I'm not talking about that. So it tells us that the longer you hold the market via an index, your chances of making a loss goes down. So that is the first finding. The second is standard deviation. Everybody understands standard deviation? Volatility. Standard deviation is a measure of volatility. So over short periods of time, volatility is high, but as the holding period increases, as you can see, the standard deviation or the volatility is going down. So your equity experience is improving, okay, the longer the holding period. And this is the kind of return, average annualized return, that an investor experienced. So this was a very decent return. If you compound this return, it is a very good wealth creation tool, right? So that was one equity ETF which I took as an example. So if you eliminate the risks associated with stock picking and buy a diversified portfolio, this is the kind of experience one would get. So that was as far as the equity ETF was concerned. Now there is another ETF which I am going to take, which is the liquid ETF or the money market ETF. So this is a non-equity product. The product is known as liquid Bs. Okay. Now this product is very popular with traders. So if you have traders who are constantly buying and selling stocks, in between those trades, if they have to park their money temporarily, they can buy liquid B shares and they will get a return which is somewhat higher than the savings bank account. So first of all, it's a non-equity product. The underlying portfolio is a money market portfolio, so it's absolutely stable, and you end up getting a return slightly higher than the savings account. So if you want to park your money temporarily, then this is the product to buy. So this is the only liquid fund in the ETF format. All other liquid funds are in the open-ended format. Okay? So let me show you this diagram. This will make it very clear. So normally when you buy shares, what happens? When you sell shares, stocks get debited or go out of your demat account and you receive money from your broker or from the stock exchange on the settlement day. Okay? And when the broker gives you the check, you go and deposit it in the bank. So money goes out of the broking system to the banking system. This is what happens in a normal sell order. Now, instead of doing that, if you sold stocks and simultaneously bought shares of liquid Bs on the stock exchange, that is, you netted off the trade, what would happen is, when the liquid Bs shares hit your demat account, you start earning a dividend. How is the dividend paid out? There is a daily dividend payout in the form of additional units or shares of liquid Bs. So let's say you sold a stock today, you bought shares of liquid Bs, and after 10 days, you decided to buy a new stock. Okay? Then what you did was you sold stocks, you sold liquid Bs shares and bought the new company. So for this 10 days, when your liquid Bs units were lying in the demat account, you earned a dividend, a pro rata dividend, slightly more than the savings bank return. So currently, the return is about, annualized return is somewhere around 5.5%. Okay, that is the kind of return that is there on this product currently. This return may go slightly up and down because the underlying portfolio is a money market instrument. But if you want to park money temporarily, then this is the best thing to do and earn a slightly higher rate of return than the savings bank account. And it is very easy because you are buying shares, you are selling shares and buying liquid ETF shares. And when you want to buy new shares again, you are simply selling your liquid B shares and buying new shares. So you are netting off your trade on the stock exchange. That is what you are doing. So this is it's a convenience product which can be used by investors very easily. Here the market maker is the AMC itself. The price or the NAV of one share of liquid Bs remains constant, 1,000 rupees. And as the interest accumulates or the dividend accumulates, we pay out that dividend daily. And the daily dividend payout in the form of additional units is uploaded to the investor's demat account once in a month. So supposing you were invested in liquid Bs for 10 days, the amount of dividend that accrued in the form of additional units, those additional units will be uploaded to the investor's demat account once in a month. So that is how the dividend payout happens in liquid Bs. So this is the current return. So the 1 year return, annualized return is about, as I said, 5.5%. The 3 year return on this product has been about 6%, and the 5 year return has been about 6%. So this is how ETFs benefit investors. So if I have to summarize, first of all, when you buy ETFs, you are buying a diversified portfolio. You're not taking exposure to individual securities. You are buying them real time on the stock exchange. So you have a real time pricing. You buy it through your existing broking account. The delivery comes in existing demat account. So operationally it is identical to shares. You bring down the risks associated with individual securities. Asset allocation is very easily possible because you're simply buying entire segments of the market via indexes, and you're also taking exposure to different asset classes like gold and fixed income. So this is how portfolio construction becomes very easy and the investor experience improves over a period of time as the risks associated with investing go down. Thank you so much. So if there are any questions, we can take them.
In the liquid fund you said,
Yes.
what about the tax implications?
So it is,
If I
yeah.
put it for a month and I get it for the 10 days, what you said is the return. The tax will be because you're comparing with the 6%.
Yeah, so it is the taxation is similar to a liquid fund. It's a debt market taxation. It's not an equity taxation. So dividends in the hands of investor is tax free. There is a TDS at source, just like it happens in liquid funds.
Sir, there is also a brokerage amount paid, no? That will also reduce the return.
So brokerage is waived off by a lot of stockbrokers who are using liquid funds because it's a convenience product. So a lot of stockbrokers are charging either a very minimal brokerage, negligible brokerage, because it is very convenient for them for the quarterly settlement and also for the investors, to make it beneficial for the investors, and the money remains in the broking system. Yes.
On the ETF side, you mentioned that it's giving the same benchmark returns.
Yes.
So, how the AMC is making profit out of that? Because it has to be lower than the benchmark returns. Then only AMC or the market maker is going to make some money out of that.
No. See, this is the how is the AMC making money is your question, right? See, there is an expense ratio allowed by SEBI. Okay, it's a mutual fund scheme. So every mutual fund scheme is allowed an expense ratio. So the expense ratio is the earning of the AMC.
How much in the ETF, Reliance ETF?
So CPSE ETF is 6.5 bips, as an example.
Yearly.
Sorry?
Yearly. 6.5 bips.
Annualized expense ratio is 6.5 bips. So it's a very low cost product.
And the Nifty piece?
Nifty ETF is about 10 bips.
10 bips yearly.
Yes.
So within that it has to.
Yeah, you have to compare this to your actively managed funds, where the expense ratios may be in excess of 1.5–2%.
No, let's talk about the
Yeah,
ETF only,
yeah.
not comparison.
Yeah.
So it's 10 bips in the Nifty piece. Now within 10 bips, you need to take care of all your expenses, salary, infrastructure, IT, everything, correct? Now, indirectly, whatever, if I am going and buying the piece from the from the exchange, simultaneously the order has to go for buying the stocks. So there has to be the brokerage cost involved and all. Where that will be accounted for?
It's all accounted for in that.
Within 10 bips? No, so if there will be transaction in the entire year, the broker must be charging 2 bips also, the brokerage plus STT and all, it must be higher than the 10 bips in a year.
No, I now can't disclose the mathematics here.
No, but STT itself is the 10 bips. So if 3–4 transactions happening in a year by the AMC, so it will be higher than the 10 bips. So the benchmark index, the ETF cannot give the same return like.
No, it's all managed within that expense ratio. The point is, it's a very low cost product for the investor. See, let's see it from the investor's angle. See, the investor is getting exposure to the entire index at a very low cost.
Okay.
That's the important point.
Let me answer something. Let me answer something for you. When you are considering ETF returns, you have to calculate your returns. It is not on the part of the mutual funds to calculate your ETF returns. What your broker is charging is your problem. See, understand this concept of brokerage. When they are charging the brokerage, they might be earning from you or they might be earning from the RM, Reliance Mutual Fund or mutual funds. So when you are calculating your returns, you have to calculate on your net cost.
I'm not talking about my brokerage. I'm talking about the Reliance Mutual ETF brokerage which they are paying to the brokers or the market maker. The market maker is incurring cost on the exchange platform.
It is their in-house this thing. So I
So-
don't
so
think
it
they are
cannot be-
answerable for their own in-house secrecies.
No, it's not a secrecy. Everything is SEBI let down practices, so nothing is secret.
So you
Okay.
open up their balance sheet and let them know yourself.
This is not an answer actually. Anyway.
See, I think here let's talk from the investor's point of view.
Yeah, it is
See, the
better.
investors are getting the product at a very low cost. That is the whole idea of passive products. Yeah. Yeah, you have a question?
My question is that still you can compare between mutual fund and the ETF. So which way will benefit more ETF? How we can compare the mutual fund and the ETF?
So
There are the mutual funds with Sensex base as well, some sectorial also. So how we compare with the ETF and the mutual fund?
your question is how do you compare a mutual fund with ETF?
Yeah.
So I showed you that comparison. When I was showing you the junior P's comparison, it was compared with 115 large cap funds, which were basically the mutual fund schemes, the equity funds. So as you could see in that study, the junior P's has done much better in many time periods than the large cap funds. So I think that's the best example of the comparison. So it's a low cost product, which is in fact, so you're basically buying the market, so you're eliminating the manager risk and the stock specific risk. And at a low cost, you are doing better than many stock picking managers. So as the study tells us, it was better than I think a lot of large cap funds. Does that answer your question?
Suppose if I buy the mutual fund Sensex base, and if I buy the ETF base, what difference between the ETF and the mutual fund?
If you were to buy a Sensex open-ended fund and a Sensex ETF, that is what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you buy a Sensex open-ended fund, you will get the day ends NAV. Okay, when you buy any open-ended fund. Here you are getting a real-time price. So let's say if the market was down at 10:30 in the morning, you could buy a Sensex ETF at real-time price.
Okay.
Whereas if the market recovered during the day, so let's say it went down 500 points and then it recovered, you will get end of the day NAV in the Sensex open-ended fund. So here you're getting the benefit of a real-time price because you're buying it like a share on the stock exchange. You're buying it through the terminal.
Right. That is the advantage.
That is one of the main advantages. Plus you're getting a diversified basket when you buy a single Sensex ETF share. You're also getting a diversification benefit when you buy an open-ended fund. But here, you're buying it real time, and even the cost may be lower because supposing, let's say, some people are trading in the Sensex ETF shares, and somebody is a long-term investor. So he has bought the Sensex ETF share and he's kept it in the demat account. He's a genuine long-term investor. Now, he is not sharing the cost of the trader. The trader is paying his own brokerage, STT and so on and so forth. Like any other share, the long-term investor does not share that cost.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So how can I solve fraction sales in liquid Bs?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Liquid Bs, how can I...
Fraction shares.
Fraction sales.
Okay, so fractional units, you can exchange with the AMC for cash. So I can give you the procedure after this meet is over.
Taking forward his questions, in the market when we want to buy, so whatever the Sensex or the Nifty is going, it is the same rate which we will get, or there must be some marginal difference between the Sensex or the Nifty and...
So best thing, the best answer to that is on my website, we have a real-time indicative NAV, okay, which is updated every 5 seconds. So at any given point in time, if you want to know whether the NAV and the market price...
No, I'm asking right now that...
So that is what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So the market price is very close to the real-time NAV. So whenever you buy...
But there must be some difference, right? Plus or minus whatever.
Very marginal difference. Very marginal difference.
Okay.
But see, here you are able to see the difference because, you can compare. Supposing you are buying a share, there is no NAV. So how do you know what is the price? Whether the price is... Because of the transparency, you are doing this comparison.
Okay. No, because if I am going to execute the ETF, So the market maker or somebody has to execute in terms of the order. So that much leg
So
will be
the
there,
price
right?
and the NAV are more or less aligned.
Okay. And there is enough depth at any given point of time. For
As I told you in my presentation, on certain days in CPSE, the volumes were as high as 1,000
So
crores.
those are the exceptional and euphoria about the IPOs
No,
and
but
all.
insurance companies, retirement funds are investing regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a lot of institutional investment now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
So if you have a large buy order, we'll be glad to execute.
Hello?
If I want to buy an ETF SIP, so at what price does it get booked? Like during the day the price fluctuates.
Sorry, you're not very audible.
During the day the price fluctuates, right? So like if I want to buy an ETF SIP, so at what price does it get booked?
Your voice is actually, cracking.
Like if I want to buy an ETF of an SIP, like an SIP of an ETF,
Yes.
so at what price does it get booked? Like the prices fluctuate during the day. So if I want to buy it,
So you see, the SIP facility is offered by stockbrokers. Okay, it is not offered by the AMC. Lot of brokers have what is known as a stock SIP facility. So if you want to do a SIP into an ETF, you will have to go through a stockbroker who is offering you that facility.
so it might vary from broker to broker.
Yeah, it will. So you have to sign up for that with a broker. Unlike an open-ended fund where the SIP is offered by the AMC, in a secondary market security like the ETF, the SIP facility is offered by the stockbroker.
Thank you.
Yes.
The question is about the liquid bees. Can I know what is the settlement cycle for liquid bees if anybody is selling?
T+2, same.
T+2.
Yeah.
So then how it is better than a liquid mutual fund?
So your interest will start when the units hit the demat account, and you will earn interest till the time it leaves the demat account. Okay. One of the main advantages, as I told you, is it is netting off of trade. So for traders who are frequently moving in and out of stocks, they can sell their position and buy liquid base shares simultaneously. So there's a netting off. And it can also be used for margin purposes. So it is a product which is very convenient for traders.
Because in liquid mutual funds, if you are selling right now, we get the funds on T+1 as compared to demat.
Yeah, so here, because it's a listed security, the settlement cycle is similar to stocks. But a lot of brokers, as I said, are using it because they have a lot of trading clients. So it's very convenient for them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you aware of enhanced supervision? Are you aware of enhanced supervision for the brokers?
Enhanced supervision?
Yeah.
No, not really.
Okay. Because in enhanced supervision, one of the things a broker has to do is they have to settle the trade within the 5 days.
Okay.
So they can invest in the mutual funds
Okay.
or the overnight funds by the Reliance Mutual Fund. Also, we have an overnight fund which is listed in BSE Star. So can we park the similar thing in ETFs?
Okay, we'll check it out and get back.
Yeah, thanks.
So, is an ETF share better or an ETF SIP?
Is a ETF?
Share better or an ETF SIP?
No, so ETF is a share and SIP is a method of investment. Okay, so I think your question is whether you should buy ETFs lump sum or go through the SIP route.
Yes.
I think that is what is your question, right? See, when you do an SIP, one of the advantages is that you are spreading out, you are averaging out the buying. So you are sometimes buying high, sometimes buying low. So you're not putting all your money at one point in time. So for retail investors, and also it depends upon the cash flows. So if you have limited cash flows, like say salaried investors, for them an SIP may be a very good option. But if you were to put all your amount at the right time, I mean if you were to time the market, which is very difficult and which may not be possible, then your lump sum sometimes may give you a better return.
And so, if being students like us, which one do you think, like which scheme out of all would be better for us? Like which ETF scheme?
All. I hope you buy all our ETFs. No, but see,
Regarding
on a more,
less and all.
no, on a more serious note. So if you see, for example, asset allocation, when I say it becomes very easy with ETFs. So let's say somebody wants to take exposure to large caps, okay, and let's say wants to add one more sector. So one way of doing it is buying the Nifty and the Nifty Junior ETF. So when you, with these two ETFs, you are buying or taking exposure to almost the entire market by value. So those 100 stocks represent currently almost 85% of the market capitalization. So with just two ETF shares, you are taking exposure to equities as an asset class. But let's say if you did some study on banking sector, you did some research and you thought that banking sector looks good right now, but you don't want to take the risk of individual banking stocks, then it may be worthwhile for you to buy a bank ETF. Okay, so at least you're taking exposure to the banking sector and at the same time bringing down the risks associated with individual bank stocks or banking companies. So I think you have to decide, how to do the mix match.
And what is the minimum amount? Like in SIP, you have the thousands ka multiples. So what are the ETF?
So it depends upon which ETF scheme you choose for the SIP. So supposing you were to choose the junior Bs, currently the price is about 267 rupees per share. Okay, you can go it on the stock exchange terminal tomorrow and see it. You can see it on the screen. So currently it is about 267 rupees, or I think even slightly higher, maybe 270 or something. So if you were to do only in that, and let's say you were to invest 1,000 rupees every month, you would get about 3-4 junior base share every month.
So minimum amount would be 1,000, right? Every month.
So that depends upon the stockbroking company which is offering the ETF facility.
You can buy one quantity. She's asking is a quantity.
Yeah, so you can buy a minimum of one share. So junior is about 267. Nifty Bs, if you buy currently, it is I think about 950 rupees. Okay. So it depends upon which ETF share you are buying. But you can buy a minimum of one share in any ETF.
Investing in gold ETF is better or in equity ETF?
Whether gold is better or whether equity.
Return.
See, it's not, I think, either or. See, it is a question of doing your asset allocation. Now, gold is a different asset class. So if you are from the finance background, you will know that different asset classes are not correlated. Okay, so they move in different directions, and that is why asset allocation becomes very important. So when you buy gold, you're bringing down some of the equity risk. So if you add gold to equities in asset allocation, you're doing a mix and match of two different asset classes. So it's not either or. I think the answer is that you should do both. You should have both in your portfolio construction.
Because gold, in gold ETF only gold is considered. So maybe if gold prices are going down, so maybe risk is higher as compared to ETF.
No, so as I said, the different asset classes they don't move in tandem. So if they are not perfectly correlated, okay, then when maybe your market is going up, gold prices are stagnant, or when there's a crisis around the world, maybe gold is seen as a safe haven, so gold is in limelight. Okay. So you can't time really which asset class will do when. So that is why asset allocation is recommended. Any more questions? So thank you all so much for your time. I hope all your queries were